looks like. There are very few places that are landscaped in anything other than this. So what are we going to do with that? How do we increase biodiversity? How do we increase nature? We start with the plants. That's because plants are the first trophic level. Those are the organisms that are capturing the sun's energy. The sun's energy drives all fuels, all life on Earth. And it's captured by plants. It's converted to food, it's converted to carbohydrates and sugars, and then animals get that food that they need from the plants. You can't have healthy ecosystems or healthy animal populations without plants. And that's because the animals get their energy directly from the plants by eating them, or indirectly by eating something that ate the plant. And when we think of animals that eat plants, when I think of them, typically, this is my backyard. Yeah, I think of deer. They do eat a lot of plants, and so do bunnies, and so do some other herbivorous mammals. But in fact, the most important group of organisms that are eating plants and passing that energy up the food chain or out the food web, however you want to look at it, are insect herbivores. And that's because there are so many types of them, and so many of them in numbers. I'm going to focus tonight on just one group of insect herbivores, the caterpillars, the Lepidoptera, butterflies and a larvae of butterflies and moths, because we know more about their host plants than any other group of insect herbivores, which means we can measure what they're eating and track it. If we were to remove all those caterpillars from an ecosystem, it would be on the verge of collapse and then eventually collapse. And that's because so many things in that ecosystem depend on insects for food. All spiders eat insects, other insects eat insects, frogs eat insects, toads eat insects, all amphibians eat insects, our lizards eat insects, everything eats insects. Rodents eat insects. We think of rodents as eating seeds. And yeah, they eat seeds too. But anytime they can get an insect, they do it, and so do the others, because insect protein is so high quality. It's much higher in quality than beef protein, and they also have fat bodies. Fat bodies are super rich in energy. And it's extremely important, particularly during the winter months, but also during reproduction. So all of these animals eat insects, particularly these guys, the birds. This is a list of the bird families in North America that rear their young on insects. And it turns out to be 96% of them. So let's just I know we hate generalizations, but let's generalize anyway. Birds need insects. If we take the bird food, those insects, those caterpillars out of an ecosystem, we're not going to have baby birds anymore. So, how do we make more insects in suburbia? It's not a typical goal, but how do we do that? We do it by planting native plants. Why does it have to be natives? It has to be native because insects can't eat just any old plant, just like we can't eat just any old plant. And that's because plants defend themselves. They defend their foliage with nasty chemicals called secondary metabolic compounds. They taste bad. And most insects cannot eat most types of plants. They can eat particular plant lineages that they have learned to eat over evolutionary time by developing the physiological enzymes, the mechanisms to break down the secondary metabolic compounds and store and excrete them and then be able to use the nutrition that's in those plant leaves. That takes long periods of evolutionary exposure to those groups of chemicals. And what it means is that most insects specialize on a particular plant lineage, just like the monarch here. This is the monarch larva. It eats milkweeds. All monarchs eat plants in the family Asclepiadaceae, and milkweeds make cardiac glycosides. Nasty compound. If I eat a milkweed leaf, I will have a heart attack. But when the monarch eats a milkweed leaf, it has the enzymes to break down those nasty things. So it can do just fine on it. The problem here is that that's all it does just fine on. That specialized ability to eat those cardiac glycosides means it's a milkweed specialist. And when we go along the roadside and mow down the milkweeds, the monarchs have two choices. Crawl off to the oak leaf and try to eat that. Can't do that, so that's not a good choice. Or die. That's not a good choice. They die. They have no choice, really. They've got to have milkweeds. And so do 90% of all the other Phytophagous insects that are out there. They're specialists. There are some generalist species out there, but most of them, by far, are specialists. And that's why when we load up our environment with plants that evolved in China or Europe or South America, and then say, here, have a healthy ecosystem, it doesn't work. The insects can't eat them. And that's exactly what we're doing. This is a picture that I borrowed from some horticulture magazine. It's telling me how I should landscape my backyard. And I know why it's doing that. It's doing that because we have chosen plants for landscaping based on their aesthetic value only for so many years that that's just what we do. Every single plant in that picture evolves someplace else. So in terms of supporting the insects in my backyard, they might look like plastic or silk plants, like the plants in the mall. They're not performing any ecological function that would help the animals. This is a plant zoo. We've gone all over the world, we collect plants and we stick them in our backyard, and the more plants we collect for faraway places, the neater we are. It's a status symbol. And that's why we do that. But you know, if I suggested that we shoot all the animals in North America and then bring in lions and koala bears and boa constrictors and things that didn't evolve here, I doubt if people would go for that. But that's exactly what we're doing with our plants. We bulldoze the native plants, and then we make our little plant zoos. But we have not kept the gates shut on our plant zoos. Look at the things that have escaped from the horticultural industry. This is a list of a list of invasive species that are causing us billions of dollars worth of problems that came from the ornamental industry. All your favorites are on here, I'm sure. And I made that list up. I didn't make it up. I took it out of here a couple nights ago in about 5 minutes. It's a much longer list if I were to actually start looking things up. How about diseases? Chestnut blight. We don't have to go beyond that. Chestnut blight was brought over on Japanese chestnuts so that we could see what Japanese chestnuts looked like in our front yard. And it wiped out it changed the nature of the eastern deciduous forest, maybe forever. We're hoping to bring them back, but certainly for the last 100 years. Look at the list of nasty insects that it's introduced. The Japanese beetle, Hemlock woolly adelgid, it's wiping out your hemlocks up here. Balsam woolly adelgid is wiping out the Fraser fir in Smokies. Soybean aphid, even important agricultural pests come over with the horticultural industry. So our desire to landscape this way is not cost-free. That's the only point I'm trying to make. Once I started discovering these things, I wanted to see whether I was right. I say, well, we landscape with alien plants, but how far did I have to go before I'd find a landscape, a suburban home that was landscaped entirely with non-natives? I had to go halfway up my driveway. This is my neighbor. One of these days my neighbor's going to be in the audience and it won't be good.